Hey, everyone. Today, Bruce and I welcome Marco Zappia to the show. We discuss 12-step programs, addiction, and true freedom, and what the Bible has to say about all of that. This is a powerful episode. We go pretty deep, so buckle up. Please enjoy episode 10 of the Ministry of Freedom Show. This is episode 10 of the Ministry of Freedom Show. I'm Jim Motes. That's Bruce Coddington. Joining us today, Marco Zappia.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here, man.
Great to see you, dude.
So we're going to discuss our history a little bit because I think that's relevant as we get rolling. And we've known Marco since you were
15.
child. Oh, come on. Way before then.
10.
Yeah, I was running around with your brothers when we were 15. And you're so how many years younger than us are you? Are you mid-40s?
I believe I'm about 10 years younger. I'm 43.
Okay. Yeah, so you're 9 years younger than me.
Yeah, you were just a little kid when I met you.
Yeah.
Because I was sleeping out at your house at like 15 and 16.
So are a lot of people.
That's true.
Correct. So we've you got older brothers, and that's kind of how we know each other because they were closer to our age and we ran around with them a little bit. And then you ended up working with us. Did you ever work with Marco?
Oh, yeah. We had a ball.
Yeah. So was it in
We
Omaha?
thrived off of each other, actually.
Did you work with him on L Street?
Yeah,
Both L Street
but I
and
wasn't
Broadway.
selling at L Street.
Right.
That
Yeah,
was
but
because
we were still at the same
We
place.
were, yeah.
So that was my first opportunity to kind of be the boss. And I'm 27 years old and drunk and strung out, and thus the topic of today, as we're going to dive into some.
Fitting.
We're going to dive into some of that. So, funny story. I'm going to start with a funny story. I don't even know if you're going to remember this. This is one of my earliest memories of working with you. So, if I'm 27, we agree at this point, you're 18 years old, 18, 19 years old. Yeah. So, I'm the boss and you're the young car salesman. Do you remember that across from that dealership, we walked across the street, there was that gas station there we'd go to? Okay, so this one particular day, I don't know if you'll remember this.
I do.
So this one particular day, I'm hungover as I typically was. So I got to go over there. I want to get cigarettes and a fountain soda because I used to drink a lot of soda. So we walk into the gas station.
Is this the fountain soda guy?
Is.
Oh, great.
So we walk in and there's a line and people are getting their sodas and moving on. So there's a dude in front of Marco and I who's a giant. So, I'm looking straight ahead at his shoulder blades because he's standing in front of me. And what I hear is, then there's a pause. And then I peer around. This dude, he's got the 64-ounce freaking soda that no one should ever have. And he's got 63 ounces in it. That's not good enough. So he's going to hit that thing as quick as he can and let it dissolve. Then he's going to get another. And this goes on for seemed like an eternity. And my patience is at its freaking end. I'm done. And I remember I did this. I turned around and looked at Marco. I'll never forget this. He looks up to me and goes, and I said, one more. So I go. Marco
had
goes.
to reach up to tap on his shoulder.
Marco goes.
Not the right guy.
So he turns around and goes. I said, "Move along, dude." He says, "What?" I said, "You're done. You've got enough soda. Move along." Guy moved along. So I go up there and I remember right then, first off, narrowly escaping what was probably the first of many potential ass beatings that day and year. But you at that moment thinking, all right, this guy's a little off his hinges.
Yeah. So what have I got myself into?
Here's where I'm coming to work, and this is my boss. So that's one of my earliest memories of working with you. And yeah, and it's kind of, it's an interesting jump off because I think it's relevant to talk about the business we were in. And at what point do you think you really started going a little bit maybe off the rails in respect to drinking and things of that nature? And at what age do you think that was?
13.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I was kind of brought up around it.
So alcohol specifically?
Yes, alcohol, marijuana.
Yeah.
As you said, I have older brothers that experimented
Yeah.
with different hallucinogens and
Yeah.
stuff, and I was around it all because
Yeah.
they kind of let me hang out because my parents were there, but they weren't present, if you know what that means.
For sure. For sure. So what we're going to dive into is we're going to talk about addiction, alcoholism, self-harm is something that we're probably going to touch on. It's going to get a little deep. It's going to get a little dark. I think those are part of a lot of people's journeys. I know they've been part of ours. And I'm even going to be curious to get your views on alcohol because they're interesting. And you certainly haven't been down quite the same path to those levels, but
No, but
there's certainly been effect.
I walked in the room a couple of times.
Yeah, right. For sure. Yes. And I think that the goal here is there's benefit that can come to the audience from hearing this, because I don't think there's anybody that is more than one person removed from the effects of substance abuse and addiction.
Yeah.
And if it's not you, you know somebody directly that it has dealt with this, is dealing with it. You've seen the harm that it can do, and you've seen the fun side, quote unquote, because to deny that there's some fun in all this is not being genuine. But at some point, the party ends.
Well, and just the basic fact that it's legal,
Yeah.
it's widely distributed,
Yeah.
it's everywhere, and it's really the only drug that people ask you when you say that you don't do it. People think that you're insane.
Wow.
People look at you and say, "Why?"
Right. Yeah. Like no one's going to come up to you and say, "Hey, you shoot up."
Right.
You don't.
Right.
Right.
I mean, and even in sitcoms, you hear people say, "I don't trust anybody who doesn't drink."
Yeah. Sure.
Right. I mean, it's part of the culture.
It is. That's a good word. I had not thought of that perspective, but it's 100% true because you are the weirdo. Make no mistake. If you're not drinking, you're the weirdo. Boy, if we weren't weird enough.
Right.
It's crazy. So a couple other things that we're going to do. We're going to dive into what the Bible says about addiction and drunkenness and freedom. And we're going to certainly, I hope, take the discussion to a place of the benefits of 12-step programs, AA specifically, and what that looks like, and maybe the downsides to some of that. Because I think there are two perspectives to it, at least. And I think you and I differ on a lot of that. So that should make for some spirited conversation.
Great news. Yeah.
So that should be fun. I'd like to start with identifying. So identifying in the 12-step world is you go into the meeting and you sit there, and we've seen this on TV, and it's your turn, and hi, I'm Jim, alcoholic, drug addict. And then what's everyone say?
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim. Hi. You have anything to share? No. And we'll move on. So I've been sober just over 20 years, and I'm going to throw sober out a lot, even though I'm not a fan of the word. You give me a little bit of a look.
Yep. Well,
right.
Why don't we like to use the word sober?
I'm not against the word sober, but I am a freedom guy, thus the name of the show, right? I'm a freedom guy. And sober is it's a way to express quickly in a way that's kind of universal, and people have an understanding of what you're talking about. So I've been sober for over 20 years. And when I started that journey, I did go to meetings because that's kind of what you do. And so I went to And I had tried meetings before when I wasn't really serious about stopping. I remember sitting in my car smoking a joint and then going into a meeting and it's just why? What are we going through the motions for? So it's okay to get your phone. It's no big deal.
I just want to make sure the ringer was off. This is kind of a rule in the meetings.
It is?
And now
So
that we're
I
having a
haven't
meeting.
been to meetings since there were cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
And if you had a cell phone, it was huge and everyone saw it.
Well, the readings actually still say pagers.
It's awesome.
That's a real thing, but we kind of don't say the pager thing anymore.
Yeah,
Because who
gotcha.
carries a pager besides
Right.
a doctor?
I don't think they do. So I don't think they do. So meetings. I remember I would go into the meetings and I was into it for a little while because I thought that's what you did. And I got this, which is the big book. You familiar with this?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, this is the big
Never
book.
seen one in real life.
So I haven't opened this in a long time. And I've read it. I've read it all the way through, and there's a lot of good life in here. It's interesting how it's written because it's super old. And
Yeah.
do you remember when it was written?
1939.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So and some of the things they talk about, they say like sanitarium.
Correct.
Is a word in here
Yep.
for like inpatient treatment and
Yep.
go to the sanitarium. So it's written that way, and it hasn't been updated from that, which is I kind of like. And I want to share this. We're going to bounce around a lot today because this isn't a super structured show. But as I pulled this was on my bookshelf. I just haven't opened it in almost 20 years. So I pulled this thing down. I opened it. I'm like, whoa. So
What's the date on that?
7/19/2003.
20
So-
years ago.
Yeah. So that is a month and 3 days after I got sober. So I've been sober about 33, 34 days at the time of this writing. So the person that gave me this book, I remember he pulled onto the car lot and I ran out to him and he remembers this vividly. So this is the father of the guy that kind of got me in the car business. And my friend Darren is who got me in the car business. And Darren has been passed since 2002.
Wow.
Darren ended his own life and battled addiction. And so this is Darren's dad, who I've become super close with and am still to this day. And Darren and I were not too interested in hearing his dad's message. His dad's name's Pat. He's not going to mind me saying his name. Pat was always coming around us, and because Pat had been sober for years at that point, and he's a big AA guy to this day. He's been sober 40 years-ish. And he would always come around and listen to our nonsense and kind of put up with us. And I didn't treat him right and didn't treat him with respect and told him, look, old man, at that point, he's probably 40-something.
I know, right?
And I'm like, look, old man, I'm not interested in your sobriety and the stuff you're bringing around here. I've got life figured out. I don't have a problem with this. So take it somewhere else. And he always was respectful, even in the face of me not being. And I love Pat, and I don't think I'd be here without his influence in my life. He pulled onto the car lot one day and I ran out to him because I hadn't seen him in a while. And I told him, hey, I made my 30 days. And I remember he came back later with this. And he says, hey, I went out and got you something. So I'm going to read what this says. It says, Jim, good luck on your new adventure. I know you have the courage and strength to do it. Please read all, underlined, all of this book and find the promises. That's a big thing in the big book. There's a lot of promises.
A lot of promises.
God will guide you on the road to recovery if you let him. Thank you for being a good friend all these years and putting up with my preaching.
Wow.
And then he put at the bottom, in memory of, and then his son's name, a life that alcohol claimed. So
Wow. You've never read that to me or shown me that.
it
That's
gives
pretty
me
cool.
it gives me chills. To this day, Pat always contacts me on my sobriety birthday. Always. And it's funny because he's not a big texter, so he calls.
Yeah.
So that guy's meant a lot to me, and that's how I got my big book. And so I did do some meetings. And around this time, I had wanted to seek out a relationship with God. And we touched on that. You remember on a recent episode, I talked about, I got a hold of a guy and I said, how do you find a Bible? Where do you go buy a Bible? It was Pat.
Yeah.
That's who I ended up, and he's like, yeah, go to a bookstore, man. I mean, so that was Pat. So, he's been kind of the star of the episodes, it turns out. So he's guided me through this process, and he is a Christian man. He considers himself a Christ following guy. And I believe that to be true. He, though, is way more big book focused in a lot of, when it specifically relates to sobriety, he's way more big book focused than Bible focused. And I don't say that as a slight. And as I have come to know Jesus, I have tended to be less this and more Bible. And I'm not here to say one is a better approach, but I think the contrasting approaches are going to make for good conversation. Back to identifying. After I had been in the Bible and talked to other men who'd been down this similar road, I had a hard time walking into meetings and raising my hand and saying I'm an alcoholic. And I remember one particular meeting, I wouldn't do it, and that sparked some conversation. And I said, well, I'm not an alcoholic anymore. And they're like, okay, you're always an alcoholic. It's a disease. You're not, it's never going to go away. It's one day at a time, all of those things. And I said, no, not me. I'm done with that. And the Bible clearly states I'm a new creation. I'm going to hunt through my notes here and find that scripture. 2 Corinthians 5:17. It reads, this means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone and a new life has begun. So I said, so I'm not comfortable. I feel like I'm lying. I'm not going to raise my hand and say that. And I said, and that seems a little bit depressing, thinking that 10, 15, 30 years down the road, I'm going to walk in here with no improvement. And I'm still just holding on one day at a time like I did years ago. I'm past that. I'm not an alcoholic anymore. Now, if someone were to ask me today, so Jim, you're an alcoholic? Nope. I would tell them no. And if you put me on a poly, I'd pass. I'm not an alcoholic. And I don't, this will be the other point of controversy. And I can see you over there just chomping at the bit. And I'll let you run off here in a minute. But I don't buy into the sickness part to where it's like if I was, I don't even know what an acceptable comparison would be, but if I was born with some sort of ailment, okay, let's say that I was born with Down syndrome. That's something I was born with, and my understanding of from the medical perspective of that is you're going to have Down syndrome your whole life.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. To call it a disease basically says you're kind of born with it or you caught it, because all sickness you're born with or catch, I think.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Right? None of us have MDs. Correct? I haven't been around you in a while.
Yeah.
But so my feeling on that is I don't have a sickness. And I also would say I agree that there are societal things that could tend to increase our chances of having problems with substances. And you touched on one. So do you think, see if I can put this the right way. You were very open and said from an early age, early teenage years, you've been around substance abuse and it's been kind of normalized in your life in your formative years. Let's say that you were raised the opposite of that. Do you think that the chances of you having the struggles that you've had with substances, alcohol in particular, do you think it would be the same?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
May not have started as early as it did, but you can't avoid it. It's going to be around you, whether it's, with friends or, and I believe that I am an addict at nature. So I guess my thoughts on the disease in particularly is and what the doctor's opinion, which is the first chapter of the big book, it describes a physical allergy. And that physical allergy, some people are different than other people. They're what we call is normies. Normies can have a drink or two and say, okay, you know what? This doesn't taste that good. Or, you know what? I'm starting to feel it. I better hold off.
Better back off.
Better back off. Right. But an alcoholic, a real alcoholic, which they describe in the big book, there's a real alcoholic, which I identify as. That allergy is set off and it's uncontrollable. It's a mental obsession of the mind. And that allergy can't be stopped until either you passed out or you're blacked out and then you're incoherent and it's gone. I never, there's three things to it. It's a physical allergy. There's a mental obsession. And then finally, I'm struggling here a little bit with that.
That's okay. There will not be a quiz.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's okay.
Good.
And you can say whatever you want for the third one. We're not going to know.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I just believe certain people have that allergy that once they open up the first drink, there's no stopping. There's no control. You've lost all control. That was me. No, I can't.
Now, it's not to interrupt you, but is that a wiring then? In other words, have you been born that way? Like, let's say you didn't have a drink of alcohol until you were 30. Would you at that point, would that have triggered all of those things that you've just mentioned and you're going to start drinking to blackout because it's just in you and you were born that way?
Well, my first experience with alcohol was a blackout. So it was from go. So I believe, myself at 30 years old would have had my first drink of alcohol.
I understand.
That allergy would have been set and I would have had no control over the amount I consumed.
Understand. And to be clear, I don't want to give the impression that I'm saying I'm right, you're wrong, or vice versa. The discussion, the value here is in the discussion because there isn't one, I don't think there's one way, one can in a box answer for everyone's issues. And if we can cover as many as possible, the chances of helping people go way up. So I appreciate your candor and your opinions. I don't ever want to give you the impression that I'm telling you you're wrong, because I'm not.
Touche.
I'm certainly not. You're living proof that at this point that works. So kudos.
Right.
It's kind of the last house on the block.
Understand. I get it. So let's back up a little bit. I would like to know, and not just for the audience, but for my curiosity, because there was a big gap in time when we didn't have a lot of contact. So we worked together for a few years. And one of the things that I think it's important is, and I've mentioned this to Bruce off air several times, is any role I've played in your issues, I apologize for genuinely, because I was an older person of authority in your life, person that had influence in your life, person that at that time I got the feeling probably looked up to a little bit. And here I am saying, hey, it would be fun. Let's drink to blackout. And why don't we do some lines of cocaine off the toilet seat at work? And I can make light of it now. I probably shouldn't, but that's what I do. Sincerely, that's not right. And that's using influence in a way that's not acceptable. And I apologize for that. But on a good note for me, doesn't matter because you were born that way.
Well, Jim, that wasn't the first lines of cocaine I ever did.
I understand. But really, and then we'll move past this, but I respect you a lot, and I respect your family a ton. And I apologize for any of that. It's just, and you aren't the only one, but it's not right. And I think that all of us have leadership and influence capabilities and qualities, and we need to make sure that they're pointed in the right direction, because it's really simple to take them the other way.
There's a responsibility in leadership.
There is.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know the gap of, we didn't talk for a decade or more,
At least.
maybe 15
maybe
years.
15 years
We
or so.
reconnected on a phone call this past summer. Make sure that Bruce knows this, and the audience, obviously. So I'm driving around one day and I'm texting with your brother. And we're not super close or anything, but the reason that I'm sure he reached out, and I didn't know he was with you at this time, was the kind of rumors were getting around that my life's off the rails, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jim's got this young girlfriend, and he left his job, and he's getting divorced, and oh boy, he's got to be off the rails. I'm sure this guy's a train wreck. No way he's sober. Let's get a hold of him. Right?
That's
Not
correct.
vindictively or anything, but oh boy.
No, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Let's reach out to this guy, because
Well,
he's off the rails.
Well, that's thoughtful. I mean, that's
Well,
actually
it's probably a little more selfish than that. They're probably super curious.
100% correct.
And what happened was,
in their defense, it was the closest you've ever been to being off the rails in 20 years. It's
true.
the most interesting you've ever been.
It's correct. Yes. So here's my struggle at this point is, as I become with every morning I wake up, less interesting. I have to fight now to not be irrelevant and uninteresting and putting Bruce to sleep every time we sit here. I can't be coming in and doing shows saying, did you see, my plant grew a little bit this week. He's like, okay, dude, that's really not a show. So,
And it's plastic.
you're right. Then the plastic plant's growing. Maybe I do need a meeting.
Yeah.
But the point here is the phone call was interesting because it was on speaker, obviously. So we're all kind of talking, and we talked for 90 minutes probably. I remember I pulled over.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I even pulled over in a parking lot. I'm like, hey, I'm in my car. I really want to have this conversation. And hey, we heard this and what's really going on? I said, here, I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you absolutely everything, exactly how it went down.
You've never not been an open book.
Yeah, here it is. How much do you want to know? How much time do you have? And I think we had a very productive conversation. And my feeling is, at the end of that conversation, I think you guys maybe thought I was more on the rails than maybe you had previously thought before you dialed the phone.
Yeah.
I wasn't a total crazy person. But what that did is it gave us an opportunity to reconnect. And so that's
a great thing.
Awesome. And what you had told me in that conversation was some things that had happened to you in this past handful of months. So to catch everyone up, and then I would like you to take the floor, so to speak, and share as much as you're comfortable with. As of today, how long have you been sober?
Today or when this comes out?
So today.
It'll be 8 months and 20 days.
Okay. So,
Awesome,
so you're going on 9 months.
Mhm.
Okay. Amazing. So back in probably June when we were talking, it was just a matter of a few months.
Yeah, I believe it had been a month and a half or 2
Okay.
months.
So let's talk about, let's go back to, so 8 months and 20 days now. Let's go back to 8 months and 21 or 22 days. And what was life like for you and your family, and what led you to this isn't sustainable any longer?
Well, it kind of starts, I'm going to start a little bit before that.
Sure.
Because it led into what events did
Understand.
occur. Through the last 6 years or so, I had really lost control of my alcohol consumption, and managed to obtain several trips to jail, DUI, several. Oh yeah. Hospital visits, ER visits, mental wards, detox centers. The it was just I was just a cycle through every couple months. I'd end up in the ER or in another from either trying to cause self-harm or or the police would take me there. There's been several events that caused me to go to jail, whether it was domestic fights, which I never was prosecuted. Or wait, what's when you actually get charged?
Convicted.
Convicted, yeah. Not convicted, but
Understand, for the record.
For the record, right. Public disorderly, just a lot of bad things. I had a beard out to here. My hair was completely down. I looked, my face was red. My liver was fatty. They told me I had to start cirrhosis. My blood pressure was 180 over 140. My kidneys were starting to give out. And I had terrible anxiety. So I went to the doctor and I said, I got this terrible anxiety. What could it be? Well, we know what it was. It was alcohol. But, a doctor, their job is...
Let me guess. Medication.
Correct.
Okay.
Benzodiazepines. They are sound like a quick fix, and it was for a little while. So I took them as prescribed for a while, and then they, as most medications, they quit working. Those are meant to be used in a crisis situation, not as a daily medication.
Okay.
But I was prescribed them as a daily medication, a very high dose. Well, the problem with the benzodiazepines, otherwise known as Xanax, Ativan,
okay.
Klonopin, that's kind of the family.
Got it. Okay.
Is that they quit working, and they actually end up causing the cure becomes the problem.
Gotcha.
Where you go into such panic attacks without them, it's unbearable.
Wow.
It's actually one of the hardest drugs to get off of, right next to alcohol and nicotine. So I was prescribed those. So I said, okay. So my drinking got worse and worse. Eventually quit my job.
What were you doing?
I was in car sales.
Okay.
I was in car sales for about 20 years.
Okay.
Had a very, very good job. Very successful, very, very gainful employment.
Okay.
And the drinking got so out of control that one day I just decided, I'm done. I'm just going to drink for a while. Didn't turn out well. So I decided I was going to cash in my 401k. Because I had a nice little nest egg. I had been working hard for a long time.
Yeah.
So I thought, I deserve this. I've been working so hard. I'm 38.
I can relate.
I'm 38. I'm ready to retire on 50 grand. Well,
That'll make for a good month.
Yeah, about two. But so now here I am living off unemployment, drinking every day, and no income. It got to the point to where I couldn't afford my alcohol anymore. So I would wake up in the morning and put on my biggest coat, and I'd walk down to the local store, and I would steal alcohol on a daily reprieve or daily.
Wow, daily basis. Yeah,
I was really, really low. I was hanging around with people that I had no business hanging around, but they were the only ones that would stand me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had to find somebody that was
the cycle, right?
Yeah, right. That was sick as I was, so they could put up with me. And because with alcohol, with me, my experience was at first I was Mr. Good Time, Johnny Good Time.
Yeah.
Everyone invited me, invite Marco over.
Yeah.
Let's get Marco to come over to the party.
Life of the party.
Yeah. Well, those phone calls eventually led to, don't tell Marco.
Yeah.
Don't tell Marco. Or, I'd show up and their wives would be like, oh, this disgust in their face because they knew I was going to get belligerent and obnoxious, and I'd be asked to leave. Until eventually the husbands gave up on me too.
Yeah.
So I became very isolated. So back to this, I'm stealing alcohol every day. I look like I live on the streets. In the meantime, I have 4 children living with me that I'm supposed to be taking care of.
Oh, wow.
And I use that as a crutch. Poor me. I had to do this by myself. Their mother's not in the situation. Poor me. I deserve to be able to get drunk because I got kids I got to take care of.
Yeah.
You know, instead of I get to take care of, I have to take care of. That's life's come that way. Is get tos, not have tos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
good word.
After my dad had taken me in several times, and I to try to dry me out, they call it. My brothers took me in for several weeks at a time to try to dry me out. But every time I'd get home, I would end up back at the bottle. So one day I decided that that was 8 months and 20 days ago. I decided that I was done fighting. I was done letting people down. I was done letting myself down. I couldn't live with alcohol. I couldn't live without alcohol. So I tried to end my own life. Okay, say that on.
Yep. You're
Perfect.
good.
You go.
Yeah, buddy.
I had a 3-month prescription for the Xanax.
Yeah.
And I decided that I had already drinking a bottle of vodka that day, and I went and got another one. And I don't remember the exact moment, but I tended to take 80 milligrams of Xanax, and then finished off another bottle of vodka. But there was a moment of panic after I did it. I realized, I couldn't take it back. There was this moment of, I want to live. Why did I do this? What's going to happen? So I told my 19-year-old son at the time, what I've done. So he called the paramedics. My 19-year-old son had to call paramedics for me.
Okay.
Everything got kind of blurry from there. I ended up slipping into a coma for 3 days. And when I woke up 3 days later, I had been rushed down to Omaha because I live in a small town in Iowa, and they were actually going to call the helicopter, but it was storming real bad that day. So the helicopter wasn't able to land, or I don't know the logistics of it, but so they rushed me down in an ambulance, which I have no recollection of any of this. But I did wake up 3 days later with a tube down my throat, which is probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever had done to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was just insane. And not knowing where I was, and then it hit me, what I did and what I've done.
Yeah.
They had all these EKG. I live in small town Iowa. And
maybe they had EGKs up there.
Yeah, that's true.
The EKGs haven't made it north.
That's right. All these tubes, IVs, and there was a person in my room. When you do that sort of thing, you're called on 24-hour watch.
Okay.
So I couldn't figure out why this person never left.
Oh, wow.
But the person sits in the corner on their phone.
Yeah, right. Of course.
and stays with you because you're at risk to yourself. So that about 6 days later, they decided they're going to release me, and my family's very upset because they wanted me to go somewhere to get help.
Yeah,
but they said no, he's fine. He was just upset.
Boy.
They felt that the psychologist there had failed me there. So I got my brother's truck, and I'm like, okay, so I'm going home. Take me home, and I will drink this time. They said, no, you're not going home. And I said, what do you mean I'm not going home? He says, well, your kids don't want you there anymore. You're not welcome at your house. And I had a feeling of, okay. So I was like, where am I going to go? And he goes, well, you're not coming to my house anymore either. I'm not going to let you just watch you kill yourself over and over. He says, so I said, well, where am I going to go? So there's a place called Sienna Francis House. And I said, well, should I go there or where should I go? Well, he goes, let's go by and talk to your dad for a little bit, our father.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went by there, and my dad, he's a pretty caring man.
Yes.
You know, he
Big heart.
maybe almost enabling in a way, but God bless him. Said he can stay here. So he lives in a pretty rough neighborhood, North Omaha. So there I am. Now I've been taking these benzos. They call them benzos. It's easier to say.
Mm-hmm.
Benzos for about 5 years now, 6 years.
Oh, goodness.
And I had to, and they cold turkeyed me.
Oh,
The hospital, they're like, you're not getting any more of those.
that's what almost killed Jordan Peterson.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Literally that.
right. And it almost killed me.
Mm-hmm.
With alcohol and benzo withdrawal was the most, I thought that was the most agonizing pain and anything I've ever been through. It was terrible. The alcohol withdrawal, 5-6 days, you know, the alcohol withdrawal, it goes rather quickly,
Yeah.
but the benzos takes you, some people say years, definitely months.
Man.
Of just terrible anxiety. Your mind doesn't, it's one of the most unhealthy things you can take. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't, every medicine is made for a reason. So, but I know for myself and for an addict, try something else. Jordan Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Yes, he's one of my favorites.
He's coming to Omaha in February.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You're going to go?
Really?
Probably.
Yeah.
So they decide, okay, Marco, you got to go get help. You got to go to a treatment center before you can go home. So treatment centers aren't the easiest thing to get into, I find out. You know, so I call this place and they get my insurance, and they keep putting me off. They tell me, okay, well, next Tuesday. The next Tuesday comes and they say, well, no, next week. So for a month, I called every day trying to get into this treatment center, to where my family thought, is he really trying to get help? Is he trying to get in there? But I truly was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, you know, I did want help, and I knew that I was going to end up either dead or in prison. So I get into a treatment center, a little place in Manning, Iowa. I get there, and I think I'm going for a detox type of, you know, I 5, 6, 7 days maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I bring like 3 socks, 2 pairs of shorts, and about 3 shirts. So I think I'm just going to be there for just a few days, you know, just to delusional.
Mm-hmm.
But and I get there and I talk to him. I meet my roommate, pretty nice guy, and I say, so what? We here for 7 days, you know, or maybe 10? He goes, no, this is a 28-day program, a month program. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, we're here for, you know, at least a month. And so I panicked, and it turned out to be one of the funnest 28 days I've ever had in my life. The counselor, it's like being at camp with a bunch of addicts, with a bunch of junkies.
Business idea. Addict camp.
Oh, it's definitely a business. There's a lot of money in recovery, and it's sad that it's come to that, but that is kind of the way it's become. But so I get through the 28 days. I graduate. We went to meetings at night, but I never really got big into AA. You know, I didn't think AA was for me. I was like, yeah, I'll go to the meetings because there's something to do, you know, and there's coffee there. And I figured, you know, let's go. And so I thought I was pretty much good. I'm like, you know, it's been 2 months, you know, since I drank. And I was like, you know, I'm better. I'm doing good. I'm good. I'm ready to go. Okay. I was nervous about leaving. And then the moment I hit that parking lot and got in my brother's truck, because I had no license at the time either.
Yeah.
I got in my brother's truck and sheer terror ran through me because I was in this cocoon of a recovery center, you know, and you're in a safe place. Mm-hmm. There's Medline, there's meals made. You just got to show up to your classes, and, you know, see your counselor, and
It's very institutionalized, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, very much so. Very much so. There's bedtime. There's a wake up time. There's TV time. It's and I was so afraid because I had left so much destruction out there that I hadn't taken care of yet. I had to face my kids after 2 months. I had to come into a home. I didn't know what kind of condition it was going to be in because I hadn't been there in 2 months. Bills, a lot of bills, a lot of debts. So I remember them saying, first thing you do when you get out of here, go to a meeting. So I went to a meeting. And
the same day?
Same day. I went to a meeting. It happened to be the day I got out was the same day they have a local meeting in my small town. So I go to the meeting and I think, okay, this is okay. I wasn't super, there's a bunch of old people there and, it's a bunch of old farmers have been sober for 20 years. No, for 40, 50 years, I'm like, you guys don't get me. I'm the real deal, man. I'm a mess. Yeah. You guys don't, Okay.
I'm the MVP in here.
Right. So I kept going back a few times, and then the guy I had used to use and drink with, I walked into the meeting, and he was like a beacon of light. He was about 4.5 years sober at that point, and if anyone was as bad or as worse shape than I was, it was him. And I said, "That's my guy." I said, "That's my guy," because he walked around with such a smile on his face. Because there are there's a lot of sick people in AA too. There are.
Yeah.
Not everybody's a beacon of light in AA.
Right.
Okay.
It's not just they're
almost mad that they're there.
Yes. Those we call those the probation card, the get well cards.
Okay.
Sign, but there's also dry drunks. There's a lot of and that comes from not working a program, the 12-step program of recovery. There's a lot of people that go to AA, they're at AA, but they're not in AA.
Gotcha.
AA is really a design for living. It's what I believe. I believe that, AA, if you work the true program and you work those 12 steps, which are vital to your recovery, you can actually be freed of alcoholism and be a recovered alcoholic. That's what my goal is. I'll always be an alcoholic of my belief. I believe it's just like I have type 2 diabetes. No, the people say though, if you get healthy enough, that type 2 diabetes can go away, but it's in remission.
I'd like to stop you for just
absolutely.
a moment.
I'm getting tired
Because first off, on a serious note, you're a real man. That's what I hear. That's my impression as I hear you speak. I have a ton of respect for you. You're what manhood is. You're facing things head on, not running from it anymore. And I just appreciate you coming and doing this and sharing. And I think people are going to benefit from your story. And you're a person of impact. And I don't think you've even touched on on all the impact you're going to have in the world. I admire you a ton. The second thing I want to tell you is in regards to the diabetes. You familiar with Jardiance?
Oh, goodness.
I take Ozempic.
Okay. We'll talk off air.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I've seen the commercial of the large lady dancing around. She's excited about her diabetes.
All right. So you've seen it. Okay.
Yes.
That's all I wanted to touch on. I have some strong opinions. Man, Marco, let's give you a breather. That's a
massive story.
It is.
It breaks my heart, buddy. But it also, at the same time, hearing you come out on the other side and just seeing you, because I can see it in your eyes that it's not there is no question in your mind what you're going to do from here on out. And I like seeing that. I like seeing that a lot in anybody.
That's why I'm here. Accountability.
Yeah, all right. There's nothing better.
I think that's amazing. A couple things that you touched on, and I want to specifically talk about the 12 steps and AA specifically. And I don't have them all memorized. I used to know them for the most part. I've forgotten them, a lot of them. The first step is, I think, admit we're powerless. Am I close?
First step is we admitted we are powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable.
Okay. I think that, so there's a lot of spiritual parallels between what the 12 steps are and what the Bible says. I also understand that from a perspective of 12-step programs, AA, NA, these types of things, it can't just be, hey, come on in here and we're going to read to you from the Christian Bible, because there's a lot of people that need the program that aren't Christian people. Mm-hmm. And so, what's a Hindu guy going to do? He needs this too. So I understand that they can't beat you up with the Christian Bible, but the parallels are amazing. So surrender is a big part of the Christian life, right? That you need a savior. That's kind of saying you're powerless. You can't do this without, they're going to say higher power several times, aren't they?
Correct.
Yeah. So now I was a little bit of a jerk at my last couple of meetings because I wanted to challenge them because I knew best and my way was Jesus. And so they're so freaking nice though in AA. So nice. All the meetings I went to, people were very accepting, very nice, and I was a little bit of the aggressor and talking to them about, I'm not going to identify, I'm a new creation, I'm not an alcoholic, you all need Jesus Christ in your lives, and so they frown on hearing that. Doesn't mean they necessarily disagree, but they're like, hey dude, you're not here to disrupt what we got going on. There's people that really need this, and if this is working for you, great, but you're not going to do this here. And good on them, because that's not the place for that. Who am I to walk in and say or do that? And so I don't have a bad taste in my mouth about the program. And I also, as you dive into it, the parallels also make me feel better about the program, because there is a lot that we can dive into.
I think this is a great spot for us to go ahead and let's end this episode. The next episode, let's go through all of those parallels with those 12 steps. Is that what you're thinking?
Sure. I think so. I think there's a lot more to unpack, and I'd like to read some scriptures that really might show some of those parallels. And we'll continue Marco's story, and we'll take a little bit of a break, and we'll pick it up.
Thank you.
You bet.
So, Marco.
Yes.
Here's what we say at the end of most of our episodes. You've watched the show before?
Everyone.
Okay. We appreciate that. Thank you. So you're the one.
I comment. I'm the comment guy. And the thumbs up guy.
Correct.
We love that.
That's right. I appreciate that.
We need more than
and
that.
the share guy.
Exactly. So what I would ask is, thank you for all of that, by the way.
Everybody be Marco.
Appreciate you being there for us. So give us reviews on all the platforms. Those are important. Give honest feedback and reviews. And I want us to always be looking for ways to improve the lives of other people. So what I would say to the audience is, if you believe the content has a chance to improve somebody's life, then share it with them. That's as simple as I can make this. Something impactful is being built here. And this show really feels like a springboard to what we're going to be able to do through this show. So I appreciate you being a huge, huge part of this. There's something is special being built here. I know it. And if you're willing, the show can be part of the reason why next year is going to be a year that you start becoming the person you're capable of being. I believe that. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.